live and direct from the Golden State. It's intelligent talk media, The Denice Gary Show. Now, here's Denice Gary.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Denice Gary Show. We're just thrilled to be back with you here today. And I have a very special guest in studio with us, Barb Reynolds-Wahlstrom. Welcome back to the Denice Gary Show.
Thank you, Denice. I'm delighted to be back.
Thank you. It's so good to have Barb back in studio. You know, Barb has worked so hard her entire life. She owns a business there in Tehachapi Court Services, and has been involved in teaching all about individuals that work for attorneys.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
And so we've got somebody that's been involved in the law for a long time.
And education.
And yes, education's taught for 30 years in the classroom. Yeah. And so we so appreciate getting her perspective. It's coming up on the end of Black History Month.
That's right.
Another reason why I wanted to have Barb in today, because we've heard a lot.
Yes.
We've heard a lot about this president. And a lot of people believe the president is racist.
No.
And I wanted to, after hearing the testimony, did you catch any of the testimony this morning from Michael Cohen, President Trump's former attorney?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
And it was disappointing,
okay.
to say the least.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what bothers me. First of all, there's so much that bothers me about people in America calling this president racist. I think that it's a stain on the United States Congress that a man who perjured himself to the United States Congress and then turned around and perjured himself to a special investigator by the name of Robert Mueller. I mean, he perjured himself twice. We know what that means. He's lied. And I believe this is the first time in history that the U.S. Congress has invited somebody that perjured himself during testimony to come back and testify before Congress.
He's a convicted perjurer. It's astounding, to say the least. And if he perjured himself once, it logically follows he's going to do it again.
And we know he did, because he did before the special prosecutor, Robert Mueller. So now he's back. And, you know, I wanted to talk to Barb today about race relations in the United States. I wanted to get her thoughts on the president, if she thought he was a racist, and if so, why? If not, why? We wanted to talk about the Josie Smollett case. I want to talk about that, but first, Barb, I don't know how familiar you are with President Trump working to expand opportunities,
absolutely,
and prosperity for African Americans.
Absolutely, I have a particular perspective, being the age that I am, and from that historical perspective have always been a Republican.
Okay.
I came from that ilk, that economic ilk, where Republicans, my grandfather was a general contractor 100 years ago. He built Iconian Baptist Church in Atlanta, Georgia, 1050 South McDaniel Street. That is still standing to this day, and church services are continuing in that very church.
Wow.
The house, I remember, down the street was recently sold and renovated, and there's 3 lots on that, so they made condominiums out of them. That's the history that I came from. And we were always welcomed. We were always, and with Republicans.
Martin Luther King, ladies and gentlemen. Martin Luther King Jr. was a Republican.
Oh, Martin Luther King Jr., Frederick Douglass was a Republican. My grandparents were Republicans who were very connected with that whole genre of activists. I remember at my grandmother's knee talking about they had to go down in Crawfordsville, Georgia to challenge certain issues of the KKK. That was the history I came from. So I was very mindful of who the KKK was and who they were not. And the notion that Republicans have somehow flipped the script and become KKK, no. I have that special perspective of 70 years ago. And it's Helter Skelter when it came out. That was not Republican. The race war thing. That was the Democrats.
Do you have that Charlie Kirk clip? I want Barbara to hear it. I want the audience to hear it. Make sure that we can hear it in studio. You know, I want to ask you before we go to this clip. Why do you believe, or were you told, why your grandparents were Republicans? Why did they choose the Republican Party?
Because it was the party of prosperity. Okay. It was the party of long-term sustainability. Okay. When you can bring 300 generations forward to today, and I am looking at my children's children, that's the kind of longevity that sustains society in general. And why we don't know about these people, why we don't know about the Frederick Douglasses anymore, the Martin Luther Kings anymore, it begs the issue of where they are taking a group of people that have literally built this nation. And it is a human tragedy what the Democrats are doing. They know they're doing. It's in plain view, but when you have dumbed down education for the last 30 years, when you have dumbed down society, you don't have people paying attention. You have third and fourth generations of welfare recipients. It's a system, it's a matrix that they can't come out because oftentimes they make more on welfare than they will
working at a
minimum wage, which is why you have to evolve to livable wages in order to trump that system that has all but disintegrated the impetus of a race of people, and Black History Month is pointing this up. It needs to reverse itself if it's going to.
Barb Reynolds-Wahlstrom makes an excellent point on the show today. The Democrats in America have refused to even talk about the fact that Abraham Lincoln, who called slavery evil,
is a Republican.
He was a Republican. They have failed to point out to the American people that Martin Luther King Jr. was a Republican.
That's right.
They failed to point out that Martin Luther King Jr. said, when asked by Democrats why he wasn't a Democrat, he said to them, because I will never be a member of the party of slavery in the United States.
And that's what it is.
And ladies and gentlemen...
Because welfare is a form of slavery. It enslaves the mind.
Oh, absolutely. It does. Ladies and gentlemen, let's listen to Charles Kirk talking about this issue of racism and the Democrat Party. Let's listen in.
What the general consensus that is taught in schools, correct me if I'm wrong, it's that Republicans were really the Democrats back then. Abe Lincoln was actually a Democrat. In fact, I unearthed a plaque at University of Illinois Chicago that still stands to this day that says Abraham Lincoln Democrat, and they refuse to take it down. Still to this day. It's stunning. So they say that essentially the Republicans used to be the Democrats and the Democrats used to be the Republicans. So what are they really saying? Well, that Republicans have always been racist and they're still racist today. That's essentially what they're saying. Nothing could be further from the truth. The Republican Party was founded upon the election of Abraham Lincoln. The Republican Party has always been the party of human freedom, of human rights, and liberation from bondage. Has always been that party and will always be that party. Now, the Democrats founded the KKK, sent KK members to Congress, put KK members as governor, so on and so forth. But the consensus that is taught in our schools is that somehow there was this great switch, that all of a sudden there was like a handshake done in Congress and they just like switched ideological parties. Completely and totally untrue. So how do I prove that? Let's talk about it logically first and foremost. Why is it that as the South got significantly less racist over time, it got more Republican. How's that possible? It should have been the opposite. It should have been that if the South got less racist, it should have gotten more Democrat, correct? How is it that South Carolina, that has been commonly labeled as the most racist state in the country, elected an Indian American daughter of first-generation immigrant as governor, and an openly a black senator? How is that possible with 67% of the vote? Well, it's because if you look at the trend within the Democrat Party, is they used to control the bodies of African Americans. Now they control them politically. And look no further than when this this change happened with Lyndon Baines Johnson. Now LBJ was a bitter and committed racist. He hated black people. He in fact opposed the Civil Rights Act for 20 years. He did not want to sign it. It was JFK that actually championed the Civil Rights Act. He was slaughtered in the streets of Dallas. And LBJ said, boy, I hope I don't have to get those N-word people the right to vote, because they were all Republicans in the South. So LBJ was tasked. He was tasked with a problem. He saw Martin Luther King, who was a Republican, by the way, marching the streets of Alabama, marching the streets of Mississippi, and gaining a lot of traction. So Lyndon Baines Johnson said, I got a problem here. The Civil Rights Act's probably going to pass. So what do? I make a grand bargain. My hatred for black people remains the same, but they'll probably get the right to vote. I know what I'll do. I'll control them. I'll get them committed to the welfare state. I'll cluster them geographically. We'll deteriorate their family. We'll introduce drugs into the inner cities, not police them, subsidize single motherhood, and I'll have those N-words voting Democrat for the next 100 years. Direct quote in the presidential record.
Barb, what do you think about Charles Kirk and the brief sort of historical synopsis he just gave us?
I thought it was excellent and it's spot on, and he puts it in perspective, the factual reality that this matrix that's been created for the Democratic vote, and I don't care if they're black, they're Hispanic, they are Syrian, whatever nationality they are, their purpose for becoming Democrat votes is to remain controlled, and that your only focus is to vote Democrat. I have literally taught in teaching 30 years. I've taught in voc ed. I've seen the students decline offers of jobs because it didn't parallel with what they were receiving on welfare. And I just thought it was astounding that with the depth of teaching that I did, they knew so much and they weren't willing to rise up and become brave and courageous to move forward with their life so that they could break this vicious cycle. The children and children's children could look at them and say, I love my mother's image. I love what she's doing. She's a strong woman. That's how you sustain long-term sustainability. You become a role model. You become a leader. Whether you like it or not, you get up every day and you dress up like you're going to succeed. You dress up like a role model because your children are watching. And your children's children are watching. And that to me is the larger issue of what the Democratic Party is doing to champion and insulate their votes. And it's not about the base. It's always been about them. That is the human tragedy, the selfishness of it. I know for a fact what the Los Angeles black community still looks like after 30 years. I taught 30 years in LA County at West LA College, so I know what's there, and I know the way it still is because they're in this matrix. They can't get out. And as long as they've got the drugs, as long as they've got the cell phones, as long as they've got the big screens, as long as they've got their Mercedes, that they're just fine. And that is incomprehensible to me.
Yes,
it truly is.
Sad.
It really is a human tragedy.
What really deeply disturbs me is we've got another election coming up, and it seems as though that the Democrats are winning this message. I have been told by students, I've been told by people that listen to this broadcast, that I'm a racist.
Oh, I've been
Because-
called one too.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, sure.
Because anybody that supports the president
Absolutely, I'm a racist.
is a
That's
racist, right? So,
I'll buy that.
So let's talk about what the president is doing, what the president is saying, and let's get right down to it. Is the president a racist?
Well, they gave $100 million to the city of Baltimore about a month ago for their infrastructure and building
Tell us
projects.
again,
I thought that was
let's-
astounding.
How much?
100 billion with a B.
The president gave 100
The city of Baltimore. That's correct. That's
Okay.
correct.
for infrastructure.
And I thought that was absolutely wonderful. And the tragedy is that it wasn't publicized on CNN or any of the other liberal stations. But that did not surprise me what Trump did. He sees progress. He's a hawk that way. He wants to advance society, advance the world,
Yes.
and all of its systems forward, not backwards, but forward. But when you have, it takes a large person to move a country forward. It takes a large person to get up every day and concern themselves with other people, not themselves.
Right.
Not
He's
themselves,
giving his
but
salary
other people.
away.
Exactly. He has, because he has the ability to earn a living, because he has ability to run a business. So he doesn't need to feed at the public trough for life.
Right.
And that's what the Democrats are about. Because if you take them out of their political positions, they could not make $2 if their life depended on it. Being in an enterprise as a capitalist. So the fact that it's being eroded doesn't really matter to them, because they had no intentions of relying on capitalism and the idea of production and creating jobs. They had no intentions of doing that.
Now, you mentioned the $100 billion of Baltimore.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you look at that as something that is an example of the president not being a racist? Explain that to the audience.
Nobody gives $100 billion. They didn't do it. The Democrats haven't done it ever.
Right.
So with
So that
something
goes
like
to
that,
everybody in the city of Baltimore.
Exactly.
It goes to African Americans,
absolutely.
Latinos,
That's right.
whites, Asians. It goes to everybody in the city of Baltimore.
Exactly.
Because the president is concerned, exactly as you put it, so eloquently, by the way, that the president is concerned about prospering the United States of America.
Everybody in America.
And when we get back, I would like us to get into some examples. I brought some things that I'd like to share out and get your thoughts on.
Sure.
And we're going to do that, but we've got to pay the bills. So we're going to commercial break, and we will be right back. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
I want to tell you about a place I love to go, Frugatti's Italian Restaurant. Very few locations here provide seating outside in front of a fabulous water fountain with an atmosphere that is reminiscent to me of eating outdoors in Venice. This is real Italian food by real Italians. And what makes it even more so is owner Ralph Frugoletti, who nearly a quarter century ago brought a wood fire oven from Milan, Italy to make, like his mother, fresh homemade bread and pizzas. Moreover, Frugatti's Restaurant offers you not only the very best in Southern Italian cooking, even importing the finest ingredients for authentic Italian food, including a fitness menu. After all, Ralph has represented the United States and Italy, competing in the Master Championship Games. He knows all the right food for good fitness, so check out the menu. After today's broadcast, run over to Frugatti's Italian Restaurant and Catering at 600 Coffee Road here in Bakersfield. And after a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday service, stop into Frugatti's for a great lunch. I'll see you there, and tell Mr. Ralph Frugoletti that Denice sent you. Salute. Buon appetito.
Ladies and gentlemen, when it comes to legal matters, contact Barb Reynolds. She is a contract paralegal to lawyers, and she will take good care of you. Moreover, she is a Kern County legal document assistant to pro per litigants. She has 47 years of paralegal experience, and for over 30 years has been an educator in the field of law and paralegal work. If you need help handling your adoption, bankruptcy, civil suit, divorce, debt consolidation, evictions, immigration, or attorney referrals, contact Barb Reynolds if you want to win your case. Call Tehachapi Court Services today at 661-822-1994. Barb is simply the best. Call Tehachapi Court Services today at 661-822-1994.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm so thrilled I've got the owner of Scope 365 Fitness here with me today, Craig Jansen, Navy veteran. Craig, tell the audience out there why everybody in town needs to come up over here and join.
Well, Scope 365 is a 24-hour club, so we never close, unlike a lot of other clubs here in town. Additionally, our club is always super clean, and one of the things that you're going to find here is a different environment where we strive to give you a VIP experience here. So we want to get to know you. We want to know your story. We want to know about you and how we can help you succeed and meet all of your fitness goals.
Wonderful. Ladies and gentlemen, come on down to Scope 365 Fitness. You're located right here on Brim Hall. Tell us your other location.
We have another location up in Tehachapi, and then our third location here in town is also located over on Chester and Columbus in the Food Mac Shopping Center.
Thank you so much, Craig. You have a wonderful day.
You too. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Denise Gary Show, and our very special guest today, Barb Reynolds-Wahlstrom. She is the owner of Tehachapi Court Services. She can help you in any way you might possibly need help in doing the kinds of paperwork that that needs to be done.
Exactly.
Right? I mean, whatever the
Bankruptcy,
attorney,
wills and trusts, whatever the lawyer needs to, squad wills, adoptions, conservatorships, yeah.
So whatever needs to be done, she can help you. Barb Reynolds-Wahlstrom. Okay. Barb, just before the break, you pointed out something that I hadn't heard, which is unusual because I'm always doing a tremendous amount of research for this show. Barb pointed out that the president just gave $100 billion to the city of Baltimore.
City of Baltimore.
And, you know, Barb and I were checking it out during the break, and apparently just in this last month, firefighters were trying to, well, here shows a fire of a school bus. Apparently, there was quite a bit of fire damage in the city of Baltimore, so we can understand why the president would give $100 billion to help rebuild that city. I think that's incredible.
Yeah.
You're in high school, Baltimore High School. Fire was reported, and I see African Americans here in the picture in the schools, and so I'm thinking, yeah, that sounds like something a racist would do, isn't it?
Yeah, sure.
A racist is going to give $100
Sure, a
billion
racist would do
to
that.
schools.
That's right.
Right.
To a black community. That's correct.
Yeah, that's what racists do.
Yeah, go compute that. I can't.
I can't either. And go compute it, people. $100 billion, not 100,000. Not 100,000. Not 100 billion. 100
to the
billion.
black community.
Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to get this out while Barb was here. We'll get her to comment on it. President Trump has been working to expand opportunities and prosperities for the African American community. One of the ways the president is doing that, and I'm looking at a fact sheet here on the situation, he's trying to make sure that African Americans are employed. Right now, African American unemployment fell to a record low of 5.9%. Wow, the poverty rate for African Americans reached the lowest level ever recorded when this man became president.
But he's a racist.
Right.
Okay.
President Trump's historic tax cut legislation included opportunity zone incentives. Now, what this is, ladies and gentlemen, the opportunity zone incentives is a program by this president to say to wealthy Americans, if you will go into this area that's impoverished and build up the infrastructure, bring jobs, help people get on their feet and get back to work, that if you will do this, there's going to be a tax break.
Exactly.
So,
and that makes sense.
It does.
It's the incentive.
What a wonderful way to put people together in this country, right?
Of course, absolutely.
So 8,764 communities across the country have been designated as opportunity zones. They're expected to spur $100 billion, another $100 billion, another $100 billion with a B, in long-term private capital investments, thanks to President's deregulation, tax reform, job training. I thought this was interesting. The president talking about school choice legislation. Who can't afford? I mean, poor white people, poor black people, poor yellow people, poor everybody, right? Poor brown people, nobody. If you're too poor to go to a private school, you're just too poor to go to a private school. Isn't this something that the president, part of this trying to help out the African American community, has given a tremendous amount of money to the nation's historically black colleges and universities.
But he's a racist.
Right. He's a racist.
Right. He's a racist.
But he's supporting...
That's what racists do. They give to black colleges. That's
and
right.
universities.
That's right. And universities. That's right. To move the community forward, to progress the community with those dollars.
That's right.
Yes. That's what a racist does for black people. That's right.
That's right.
We'll buy that.
Yeah. And on top of that, the president's providing school choice legislation. So all of the poor kids in America, doesn't matter what color you are.
But they don't want them to go to school.
They can have
They don't want them to get jobs. They don't want them to look at television and understand what's going on in the real world. You gotta keep them in that matrix. You gotta keep them on that plantation where they are. Don't let them move. Don't let them swerve left or right. Just keep smoking that stuff and drinking that booze and popping those pills and just stay in poverty. You know what?
Preach it.
You gotta learn to despise poverty.
That's right.
See, and when you didn't grow, I didn't grow up with poverty. Oh my God, no. My grandparents didn't grow up with it. So I have an aversion to poverty.
Me too.
Which means I'm gonna get up every morning. I'm gonna create my own business. That's what people do. That's what forward-thinking people do. You motivate people in that regard. I've done that for 30 years. I've oftentimes had to build them up on the inside before I could build them up on the outside. And I did that. You can't win them all. You can't fix everybody, but I try. And that's why I'm coming back out of retirement, and I'm going to start teaching again because America needs me.
Good for you.
Okay, they need me.
So, and the president, to help make that happen.
Of course, I do intend for Donald to be in the mix on this.
Signed funding legislation last year in September to increase funding for school choice.
That's right.
$42 million the president put into that. Let's tell that to the Democrats. Everybody that's listening to this broadcast needs to share out this show. Why would the President of the United States be handing money to the nation's historically black colleges and universities to provide school choice for everybody in America, regardless of your race, regardless of your ethnicity?
Because he's a racist.
Right. And
that is ridiculous.
And I want to talk about the Vice President for a moment, Mike Pence. Mike Pence this month was in South Carolina, Columbia, South Carolina, and he went to a black church called Meeting Place Church. By the way, I went to an all-black church. Did you know that?
I didn't know that, but I know you enjoyed it.
I grew up poor, but and I worked my way through, and always was working night and day.
Sure.
But I went when I was in grad school, right next to the School of International Relations at USC. You say, why did you go to a private school? I had to go to a private university because.
Well, you know Von Kleinschmidt Center then.
Yeah, of course. I had to go to a private university because it was the only one on the West Coast at that time that focused on Middle Eastern master's and doctorate degrees. That's why. So I did that, and I worked all the time. But anyway, I went to Fred Price's church. I'm sure you're familiar
Of course.
with that. On Crenshaw.
Church. That's right, Crenshaw Boulevard.
And you know, I thought about Mike Pence when I heard that he was at this black church, because I attended a black church. Bishop Freeman, and talked about the opportunity zones and said, this is what the vice president, this is the man that our racist president picked.
Sure.
Right, to be the
to
vice
go to a black church.
Yeah, to go to a black church. And our vice president said at the black church, Americans need to pause to celebrate the extraordinary accomplishments and contributions of African Americans to the life of this nation, from business to the arts to sciences to politics to the armed forces of America to law enforcement and every field and endeavor.
Democrats don't want that. Oh,
But how do you think CNN carried that?
no. Shh, they don't want that.
Do you think MSNBC carried that?
Of course not.
Do you think ABC,
They're
NBC,
paid
or
to
CBS
not.
carried that? I don't think they carried that.
No,
Our
they
vice
didn't.
president,
They're paid not to report that.
our president, inviting to the White House people and African Americans and talking about how he's working and wanting to deliver the kinds of opportunities to the African American community
But people
like they've
smart
never
enough.
had before.
Denise, blacks are smart
after
enough,
this
I'm telling
hearing
you.
today, after this hearing by Michael Cohen, I'll tell you those Democrats looked extremely happy. Let's go on to something else, okay?
Okay.
I want to talk real quick about the President's State of the Union.
Wonderful.
You know, one of the things, I don't know about you, but I didn't hear a single Democrat give the President any credit for his State of the Union message, working to be the uniter-in-chief. That's what I'm going to call this president. I'm going to call this president
I like that.
the uniter-in-chief.
I like that.
Let's do it. So, I'm thinking he was the uniter-in-chief because, number one, this is the third paragraph, the third line of his State of the Union address back there on February 6th. He says, millions of our fellow citizens are watching us, and he says, hoping that we will govern, not as two parties, but as one nation. Does that sound like a racist to you, governing two parties as
Racists
one
just
nation?
don't say that.
And then he said, I want to lay out this evening, it's not a Republican agenda, it's not a Democrat agenda, it's agenda for the American people.
That's inclusive.
Very.
Not exclusive,
Thank
but
you.
inclusive language.
Thank you.
That's what that is. That's how you interpret that language.
I thought that was a
Absolutely.
uniting
Yes, it is.
statement
Yes, it is.
from the uniter-in-chief.
It's literal.
Yes.
You accept the literal interpretation of it. It's unifying. It's inclusive language.
Then he went on to say that one of his core promises that he campaigned on, campaign promise, is to defend American jobs and demand fair trade for American workers. Last time I checked, American means everybody.
Yeah. Everybody.
Brown and yellow, black and white.
I read something the other day, Denise,
Okay.
that talked about the constant name calling of black Americans as African Americans.
Do you not like
that?
that?
No, I prefer to be called a black American
Oh, okay.
because
Okay.
African American, it's disjointed.
Okay.
It's some country across the ocean, so you're
continent.
always there's this detachment. You don't call Italian Americans or Syrian Americans. They're Americans. Call me a black American if you must use
Okay.
two pronouns, but
Okay.
but an American.
Okay.
And that's very important. And who pushes that agenda? The Democrats. African American, because they want us disjointed and disconnected and diffused.
And you know, when you
it's
think
exclusive, again, that language.
Thank you. That's a good point. I've always said, I mean, nobody calls me an Estonian American or a
Exactly.
Latvian American or a Polish American.
That's the point.
I just, and you know, when we think about this, I want to just diverge for just a moment off the State of the Union address. Just give me 5 minutes. You know, a lot of people, including Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris was just asked, well, I have that in my stack here somewhere. Kamala Harris was just asked if she thought the president was a racist, and she said, you know what? He called certain countries, referring to countries on the African continent. Okay, there's many countries on the African continent. But he referred to those countries on the African continent as S-H-I-T, S-whole countries. And I thought to myself, and every Democrat has since said that's racist. But let me give you my take.
Are they a shithole? Are they a shithole because of the Democrats? Are they a shithole because the resources weren't directed where they should have been, and that's the result that is spawned? And for you to identify and call a spade, you're a racist or you're a bad guy, right?
Right.
No, that doesn't compute. You need to put the blame where it lies.
Well, this is very good. My point, I want to share something too. So on this African continent thing, I thought right away he called them whole countries, and I thought to myself, there's tremendous persecution of Christians. Most of the countries on the African continent today, because of the spread of Islam by the sword, by jihadists, are Muslim countries. And you cannot be a Jew or a Christian and necessarily live there peacefully and securely. So I think that's all about racism. That's all about bigotry. That's all about what we see in Islam when we pick up the Quran. And when you think about the fact that these are totalitarian countries where people are arrested arbitrarily, randomly,
That's right.
for opposing the government, does that possibly make them an S-hole country? Possibly. You know, when you think about the persecution,
Sure.
the racism, when you think about the poverty in those
That's
countries,
a good description of
when you
shithole
think
country.
about totalitarian dictatorships where people can just disappear and you never hear or see from them again.
You need to look at the larger picture.
You need to
and
look
stop this whining about what somebody called you, but the larger picture and what's getting done to move us forward. That's where your focus needs to be, and you need to quit this victimhood.
But the Democrats, the leftists,
I
the
know
liberal
it.
progressives
I know it.
keep bringing that up. And
Because
Kamala
they
Harris,
want them to stay right there. Don't
Right.
move. Stay right there in
Right.
that matrix. Just look pitiful. Just be pitiful, because that's what you are. And guess who is at fault? Your enemy are the racist Republicans. Even though the numbers are just absolutely astounding. The lowest unemployment level in the history of America for the black community, and they don't even see it. They don't even turn the TV on. They don't even open a newspaper or a magazine to read. Because Don Lemon will give it to me, hi baby, and the other one over here, he'll give it to me, and I can just look at him, oh, he looks so cute, and just peddle this pablum to you, and you eat it, you just suck it up as if this is gospel, and it is not. And when are they gonna get tired of being pimped? Let's call it what it is. It's pimping.
and let's call
that's a crime.
Let's call Don Lemon out on calling white people in America the true terrorists. Remember that? We played that clip twice.
How much was he paid to say that?
I don't know, but I thought to myself, talk about a divider.
Oh yeah, well,
Talk about
that's
somebody
what they
that
want
creates
to do,
divisions in
of
the
course.
United States of America. Let's play that clip.
That's outrageous.
I want you to hear the president in January of last year where he's honoring Martin Luther King Jr. And I want you to hear the president. Let's go for it. Okay, you're not ready?
Hold on.
Okay. Where he's
Mr. President, are you a racist? Mr. President, will you respond to these serious questions about your statement, sir? No, Mr. President, I'm talking to the president, not you, sir.
To start saying that we come from a shit country, I honestly don't agree with you in any way.
For him calling us shitholes, that was so bad. It was so intimidating.
We are developing at our own level. We can't compare ourselves to them who've been independent for 200 years and so he's really abusing our country.
To no surprise, the president started tweeting this morning denying that he used those words. It is not true. He said these hate-filled things, and he said them repeatedly.
Today we celebrate Dr. King for standing up for the self-evident truth Americans hold so dear, that no matter what the color of our skin or the place of our birth, we are all created equal by God.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so 2 points here. Number one, you know, it was mentioned there on the video about the S-hole countries. And I noticed that one of the young men there said, well, it wasn't right for the president to call us people. And the president wasn't calling people S-hole countries. He was talking about countries in which there are dire situations happening, in which there's tremendous racism and poverty and dictatorship, where people are brutally tortured and killed for opposition to the government. These countries are not happy countries where people are racing around the world to get to and live in. And the young woman from Kenya, you know, I really worked to help a woman from Kenya. She was a student, adult. You know, I teach adults. This is an adult student from Kenya. Worked to pull together quite a bit for her to take home, because in Kenya, now this is a woman from Kenya that told me, who I used to pick up and take to school every day, to campus, and she says, you know, I have to brace myself to go back to my home country after being here in the United States for a year, because she says there's so many street children. Now, and I really worked with her because we wanted to get shoes and clothes and blankets and things like that for the children, because she and her husband wanted to start an orphanage there.
Right.
So, you know, this is a woman I talk to every day, and I can understand why the president would say that, because of the street children. I don't think that people in this country who haven't, you know, and I've traveled to the Middle East. When I think about the street children in Egypt, when I think about Muslim street children trying to push away the Christian street children so that they couldn't get any food or tips or anything, because they were the little Christian children that were there on the street, and the Muslim children wanted all the blessing for the tourists that were coming into Cairo and in other cities of that country. So I just need to say to you people, whether we're talking about street children or horrific poverty, dictatorship, brutality, persecution, domestic violence, you know, a lot of these countries, there are no laws against domestic violence. In fact, men, if they want to kill their
that's what
wife,
makes them shithole countries.
yeah,
That's right.
exactly.
That's exactly right.
Exactly. I want to know why that's racist. You said it.
No, it isn't.
You said
No,
it,
it isn't.
Barb.
And-
You
and-
said
and-
it. The president's calling his spade a
Yeah,
spade.
I know for a fact that a former student of mine can't go back to her country because she divorced her husband. And there's an honor contract out on her life.
Honor
So
kill. She used to
she
be honor
has to
killed.
bring her family here in order to enjoy them. But thank God, she now is easily making $90,000, $100,000 a year because she was taught up to become one of the best paralegals on the planet. And I happened to be a teacher for 10 months. And that is a story, that is my why. You want to know why I taught 30 years? That's one of the whys. Because I know it works. Because this woman can now feel her family. She may not be able to go home. Okay.
What country is it? What country is it?
It's India.
India.
She cannot go home. But she's taught up and built up to where it's okay. It's okay. And that's why I teach.
Ladies and gentlemen, honor killing is practiced. It's not a Hindu family, is it? It's a Muslim family in India. And I'm surprised that they're not here, because I know several women who've had the family member of that ideology that raises Islamism try to get into the United States to kill their former wife. And that, ladies and gentlemen, you might not know it, but I do.
Yeah.
I had top secret clearances, and it is real. And they'll come up through Mexico, because they can easily get to Mexico or to a Central or South American country. And they'll come in like they're an illegal getting through, and they will attempt to kill their former spouse who has fled from them because of spousal abuse. Okay.
But there's a contract, and they have to.
Yeah, it's a contract. It's an honor killing.
The contract, yeah.
So getting back, I know we've got to go. We've got to get to a next break, but I just want to finish this about the State of the Union. So, I thought it was also interesting that the president, when he talked about abortion, he said that he felt it was important. Now, I'm quoting the President of the United States. He said, we have to defend, quote, the dignity of every person. The dignity. We have to defend the dignity of every person.
And implicit in that is the fact that even the child is a human being. That she's a viable, living being.
Of any color
or
ethnicity.
Or ethnicity or age.
Every person.
It's a human being. Yeah.
Every person, he said. And he says, I'm asking Congress to pass legislation to prohibit late-term abortion. Of course, a child feels tremendous pain by the 5th month, by the conclusion of the 4th month.
It's unbelievable.
Because children who can feel pain in the mother's womb. Now, this is a president that says we have to build a culture that cherishes innocent life. All children born and unborn are made in the holy image of God. All children, born or unborn, are made in the holy image of God. That's what a racist says, right?
That's what a racist says, sure.
Every unborn or born child,
a racist says that. Tries to save the baby.
Is made in the holy image of God and wants to defend their lives. Right. And then I thought it was interesting, of course, he's invited a Holocaust survivor and individuals, and I thought his last statement in the State of the Union, and then we'll go to a break. That last statement is, he says, we must keep America first, keep freedom alive. America's destiny is that we're one nation, unifier in chief, one nation under God. One nation. And he goes on to say, must be the hope and the promise. America must be the light and the glory. I love that.
Love that.
Yeah, I love that. America's
that's what
destiny.
says.
We have right. Yeah, we have to keep faith in America's destiny that one nation under God must be the hope and the promise and the light and the glory among all the nations of the world. God bless you and God bless America. That's the President of the United States.
I know.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back with Barb Reynolds-Wahlstrom. You are listening to the Denise Gary Show. Thank you for listening. So much more when we come back. Actually, we don't.
has correctly stated that economic security is national security. And in the Tehachapi Mountains of Kern County resides a United States defense contractor, Anates Products. Here is the Silicon Valley of the aerospace industry, right here in East Kern. Anates Products is a forward-leaning manufacturer and distributor of hardware sold to major defense and aerospace companies. We're talking about Boeing, Lockheed Martin, United Technologies, Northrop Grumman, Raytheon General Electric, and on the list goes, as well as to every United States ally worldwide, including Israel, America's most important strategic ally in the Middle East. And for everything that flies, Anates Products is providing the parts. And with me today is the president of Anates Products, Scott Baker. Hi, Scott.
How you doing?
Scott, tell us why you believe this corner of Kern County is the hub of the aerospace industry.
Well, this portion of Southern California here out in the Antelope Valley, it contains, some of the most cutting edge technology going on in aviation today. We have some of the UCAS programs with unmanned technologies going on. We have Edwards Air Force Base out here who's doing continual testing in their area. We have the Naval Weapons Station up there at China Lake doing some fantastic cutting edge stuff, cruise missile technology, and those things are going on. We have Scale Composites locally doing a lot of composite technology, which is new. We have SpaceX, which is a private one, a private entity putting things into space now. This area is the growth center for aviation's future, and this is the area I think that as a nation we need to be concentrating some of our effort and taking this technology. And as we all know, with the space program from Apollo years ago, out of these technologies, we the private sector are going to reap some of the benefits of that.
Thank you, Scott. Ladies and gentlemen, Scott Baker, president of Anates Products. Anates Products, located in the beautiful mountains of Tehachapi, California, in eastern Kern County, is home to some of the most innovative and specialized technologies in the world, including those at the U.S. Naval Air Warfare Center, Weapons Division at China Lake, Edwards Air Force Base, as well as Stratolaunch, launching satellites capable of delivering multiple orbits in a single flight to space. And it is Anates Products that has provided the manufactured devices, and the president, Scott Baker of Anates Products, Marine Corps veteran, reactivated on 9/11 to monitor threats to the homeland, is carrying on a tradition of providing for the security of the United States by manufacturing every kind of fastener on anything that flies, as well as providing a full testing destructive laboratory. Contact Anates Products, now in business for 30 years, at 661-822-6873. Located at 1314 Goodrich Drive in Tehachapi for your manufacturing and testing needs today.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Denise Gary Show. Again, my special guest was me throughout the broadcast today. Wow. Thank you so much for spending the hour with us.
It's my pleasure and my honor, Denise.
It's gone so quickly.
I know. Lots to talk about.
Yes, there is. We're not even going to get to it all. Yeah.
No.
We talked about, we were texting back and forth for the last few days. What all the issues we were going to, we're just going to get to this today.
Exactly.
Okay.
We tabled the others.
Yes, we'll have you back. We'll have you back.
Okay.
Okay. So, I was thinking about going back to our presidential candidates in the Democratic Party for 2020 and how corrupt they are.
Ooh.
And how they keep repeating the same lie that this president is racist. And I wanted to bring to people's attention the Criminal Justice Reform Act that the president and his daughter, members of his family, and others, Republicans, and the president together have worked so hard to make happen. Criminal Justice Reform. And one of the men that he had at the State of the Union message was the first prisoner The first prisoner. Let me show you a picture. This is the first prisoner. Can everybody see this, Mr.
Yes.
Producer? This is the first prisoner. His name is Matthew Charles. It's a story of redemption. In 1996, he was sentenced to 35 years in prison because he was selling crack cocaine and other related offenses. When he was in prison, it says he found God. He completed 30 Bible studies, became a law clerk, taught GED classes, and mentored fellow inmates. January 3rd of this year, first of the year, Matthew was the first prisoner released as a result of the First Step Act.
Successful re-entry into society. That's great. That's just great.
Prison reform. Absolutely needed, and it was a Republican president that made it happen. It wasn't Barack Hussein Obama that made it happen, was it? Was it Barack Hussein?
Absolutely not.
And you know, last time I checked, there have been 2 black Americans who have been released from prison. There was another gal that was involved in drugs, and one of the Kardashian gals
was able to
spoke to the president. Well, she spoke to the president. The president said, "Yes, I'll partner. Let's go." So.
It was cruel and unusual punishment. That's what it was.
Yeah, she was in
the punishment.
Yeah,
didn't justify.
far
exceeded. Yes, absolutely.
Far exceeded the crime.
And he was
and the president pardoned her.
Humbled and a Christian and a man, and did that. That's not what racists do.
Right. That's not what racists do. So I thought, you know what? Let's mention that along with our opportunity zones. Along with all that money that's being given to these black colleges and universities, along with the $100 billion to Baltimore, I want you to hear another clip. This is about the Democrats that went wild. They were just ecstatic. Liberal progressives, they said that the president, when he denounced that racist violence in Charlottesville, Virginia, recall that, ladies and gentlemen, back in 2017, the president's first year in office. And the president denounced the KKK, he denounced neo-Nazis, he denounced white supremacists, he said they were repugnant to everything America stands for, that holds sacred. I mean, the president is telling the American people, but it wasn't good enough.
He distanced himself from that extremist right. And why they can't see that and appreciate it, of course he denounced it.
He denounced it. Play that clip. Play that clip. It's incredible to me.
Racism is evil, and those who cause violence in its name are criminals and thugs, including the KKK, neo-Nazis, white supremacists, and other hate groups that are repugnant to everything we hold dear as Americans. We are a nation founded on the truth that all of us are created equal. We are equal in the eyes of our Creator. We are equal under the law, and we are equal under our Constitution. Those who spread violence in the name of bigotry strike at the very core of America.
Ladies and gentlemen, isn't that so interesting to hear the president? He's talking about all men are created equal. That's biblical.
It is.
And I've heard a lot of people that have been close to the president talk about his sort of reconnecting with God, that during the campaign and after the campaign, he has surrounded himself with pastors. He had pastors come to the White House.
He better have God.
Yeah. Well, he had a group of pastors come to the White House.
He needs God.
And they prayed over him.
That's right.
They prayed for him.
That's why he's still standing and he's still strong. No weapon formed against him will prosper. The weapon will form, but it will not prosper.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And I know based on things that I've heard shared out that this president has actually, I believe, we maybe became distant for a season. But it sounds to me like everything I'm hearing and all the pastors that he telephones and talks to, the people that contact him and say, I want to pray for you. I really think about some of the comments that he makes about God and this country, and consistently, incessantly, the president continues to speak to the issue of God and the dignity and equality of man. And there he is again, his first year in office, referencing the Declaration of Independence, referencing Abraham Lincoln's speech during the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863, when our first Republican president said that under God all men are created equal. Again, this is something that's talked about in the Torah, what Christians call the Old Testament. It's spoken of in the New Testament, and it's part of our founding documents by our founding father and founding leaders to this country, Jews and Christians alike, that had a place at the table in terms of developing a country that wanted to respect all men. And I thought that was just important to bring out as we begin to wrap up the show, that the president believes that all men are created equal. Barb, you're our special guest today. I want to give you the final word.
Thank you, Denise. I wanted to direct this to my dear person across the aisle, Jussie Smollett. Darling, don't ever write a check if you're going to commit a crime, okay? That's one. Listen to me very carefully. Don't write a check. Secondly, you do not want to put a noose around the neck because, darling, if the KKK was coming after you to lynch you, honey, you wouldn't be here. See, they have the appropriate mens rea, state of mind, those worms in the brain to take you out. So the very notion that you had a noose around your neck and you live to tell about it, oh please, okay? I have members in my family that were lynched. So you can't tell me the narrative, the environment where that is created. It never was in your environment. It was made up. It's that same helter-skelter of 50 years ago, which tells me, bless your little cute heart, you're so young and innocent and you have no clue what you're doing. So there had to have been somebody that can remember helter-skelter 50 years ago like I did. And that this was served to create the narrative that Trump is racist and that Republicans are racist, and they did this to me, and they were about to hang me, and I was so scared. Honey, baby, if they were after you to lynch you, darling, you wouldn't be here. Okay? So I didn't believe it when I heard it because I have a frame of reference from which to judge that. So watch your P's and Q's, darling. You're going to go to the pokey, as you should, because you need some building up, and you need to understand, you need to stand on your own 2 feet and think for yourself. Okay?
You think he'll have serve prison time? I don't think he's going to serve prison.
Well, we're going to see.
We'll wager it.
Well, we're going to see.
Put a wager on it.
Considering who's buying who and the state of our justice system, which saddens me, it breaks my heart after being in this business 47 years. It breaks my heart. But this too shall pass, and it will, and I will outlive them. Because I don't have demons around me. And I put that out there to you, Jussie. Don't do that. Don't do that anymore. And don't forget, when they suggest to you to use a check, think that through to its logical conclusion, Jussie, and don't do that, okay? Don't commit a crime and use a check.
Well, he's out right now. He's out on bail. All he had to do was put up $10,000 cash, and he's walking a free man. But ladies and gentlemen, we hope, because there have been, we're going to do a show where I'm going to bring in a list of the hoaxes to suggest that it was white people.
That's a great idea.
That support.
I love that.
Yeah, I've got to do the research, but I'll put it together. I don't know when I'm going to do it.
I'll help with that. Between the two of us.
Yeah. Do a show on the hoaxes to try to suggest that the people that voted for this president are racist, because there are so many hoaxes that have been perpetrated.
And there's a pattern of hoaxes.
Yes, and it's really sad.
Yeah.
Barb, I want to thank you so much for coming on the Denice Gary Show today. We so appreciate you.
Thank you so much, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Well, we all thoroughly enjoyed having you here today, didn't we, Mr. Producer?
We sure did.
I thought he was going to laugh himself out of the chair. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. We so appreciate you. We'll be right back, God willing. We'll be right back with you tomorrow on Thursday. Again, thanks for listening. Please share this broadcast out with all your friends and neighbors, colleagues, independents, Democrats. Let them know another perspective. Let them hear another perspective. Be good for them. Yeah.
Good point.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you again. We appreciate you. Have a blessed evening. See you tomorrow.
Thank you for listening to the Denice Gary Show. Intelligent Talk Media.